Hello, my name is Nicholas. Thank you for checking out my video. I want to talk a little bit about the plant-based diet, as some would call it, veganism. Now, let me just say, when I say veganism, it doesn't necessarily mean that a person is ingesting a plant-based diet. Even though you would assume so, I've met vegans, people who claim to be just that, who really do not ingest a plant-based diet. But those people are usually all over the place anyway. But I want to talk about the plant-based diet as it relates to physical fitness and athletic performance. Okay, what some people don't know is I was a vegan for approximately 4 to 5 years. And when I started, I was dedicated. I made really good points about that lifestyle as it relates to human performance. But like I say, when you start something, you really don't know how it's going to play out until it actually does. And I have interviewed, spoken to people who are on a plant-based diet and swear by it, but really don't like to emphasize the facts that they don't support. So basically what I'm trying to say, they emphasize the benefits, which is human, I would like to say. And I'm not here to promote anything, actually. I'm a neutral. I like to look at something and analyze and see what is happening. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself when it concerns the plant-based diet and what I did just generally, because I don't have my notebook and all the information about what I did at that time. But when I started the veganism plant-based diet, and this is before it became a trend, by the way, my reason for doing so was health and for the animals, because I love animals. And I made the mistake of continuing with the intensity of my training, exercise. I wanted to maintain a certain amount of muscle mass and even increase and decrease fat mass. Now, I did my research at the time. I crossed my T's and dotted my I's. But unfortunately, your body is engineered in such a way, and genetics do play a role, of what's going to happen as you progress. Either you're going to go down or up. And so as time went on, everything was fine. But you have to stick with somebody long enough to see how they change, right? You just can't look at them and say, oh yeah, you look great, because there are people who put up videos and photos and they claim to be a vegan, or maybe they are, and they look great, but you don't see them over a period of time. So over a, I would say 2 to 3 year period, I noticed changes in my body, my performance, but I was never about strength. Really, I wasn't about, let me see how strong I can be. So I really never paid attention to that aspect. But I started noticing that my muscle mass was decreasing. And that really wasn't a huge concern because I was maintaining a low body fat percentage. And unfortunately, when you get compliments and etc., it's like, okay, plus I was experimenting at the time. Didn't really know what would happen, but I felt good at the time. But as things progressed, I kind of went downhill. And then when I noticed what was happening, I said, okay, I'm going to see what happens when I put this back in. This meaning, let's just say, a carnivorous type of diet, and see what happens. And I noticed an instant change. Now, I didn't want to go back to that direction. I wanted to stay where I was at. So I would supplements, and change my way of eating around, because there's not just one group that you can eat when it comes to plant-based. You can change things up to support whatever demand. But sometimes the demands are just too high. And I was in ketosis. It's hard because you're training and regardless of what people say, and I know there's so much question on this, calories. Some people say you can eat as much calories as you want and you will not gain weight as long as it's this or that. But the reality is this. If you look at a power lifter, a bodybuilder, a runner, consider their diet and training. I guarantee if you take the average person, whether it's male or female, and put them on 3,000 calories per day, usually he or she will gain weight. That's just common sense. But I will say this, a calorie is not just a calorie. Unless it's already in your body and you have to utilize it as energy. That's different. But when, like, for example, if you're drinking high fructose corn syrup, it will cause hormonal issues. Just speaking generally. And for those of you who want to disagree, you can continue to do that, but that doesn't change the facts. And the studies are validating just that. So I just want to make that clear. I do not believe a calorie is just a calorie. But just to get on topic, I wanted to see how vegans perceive the changes in their body over time. And so I would not be judgmental. It was all about asking them, well, how much did you weigh before and 2 to 3 years later? And how has your training changed? How often do you work out? And the list goes on. And surprisingly enough, it kind of matched what happened to me. You know, you only have so much energy. And when you're ingesting a diet that really does not support what you're doing as a performer, it kind of ends the way it's supposed to. I mean, how could you expect? Now, let me just say this. As research evolves, technology as well, with how food is processed and etc., I'm not saying that the plant-based diet does not work, but you can only do so much as a physical performer when on that type of diet or lifestyle plan. It's the reality, and it's something that I did not want to come to grips with, at least at that time. I wanted to believe that it is what it is. It's what I want it to be, but unfortunately, I don't ignore facts. And I have to write down what is truly happening. So with the people that I was working with or talking to, their muscle mass decreased probably 10 to 20 pounds over a 2 to 3 year period of time. They would train, let's just say, 4 days a week and change it up a bit, but it decreased over time. It declined, and that's because, well, if your muscle mass is decreasing and you're in ketosis, let's just assume so. I don't really have the laboratory values to back it up, but I can tell by the side effects, how their breath smells, and if I did a pH test, pH strips, it would indicate that. Plus, when you're utilizing your muscle for energy and you're consuming a low carbohydrate diet based on grams and daily servings, at the end, that kind of gives an indication. So I don't need to put them in a hooked up to machines in order to come to that conclusion. And so that is what I see. Now, the question is, can a person still have a muscular body on a plant-based diet? That is no question. Of course you can. Of course you can still run, weight train, and etc. But we're talking about different levels of where you can bring the physique to, and how the body just works with different foods, like plant-based foods. You know, some people say, well, you know, I can eat a plant-based diet and do the same thing as a powerlifter can. And I say, well, why don't you show me? And if you can show me, I'll believe you. Or if you can show me somebody and they can prove to me and demonstrate that that is what's really happening, I will consider that. Now, if you're going to show me a ripped individual, I was ripped while on the plant-based diet. That's not what I'm saying. I was able to support my body weight. I was actually extremely strong. Now, the overweight vegans that were on, let's just say, not necessarily a plant-based diet, but they were eating everything else other than the plant-based, I would like to focus on genetically modified food. And that is another area where people are often just like, I don't want to talk about it. But anything you ingest, whether it be genetically modified food, any chemicals, and I'm not comparing genetically modified to chemicals, but some would, and it is causing, let's just say, deteriorating your GI tract. To me, that is affecting nutrient absorption, and if you're not getting the nutrients you need in order to sustain cellular function and etc., you're going to eat more. It's like a response your body has. I'm going to eat more until I get those nutrients. And it's a destructive cycle. And so there are so many factors that play into this, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on this. The plant-based diet, at least from what I've experienced, witnessed, the studies that I have read, support health-wise. but I'm talking about this in more of a fitness bodybuilding type of way. And of course, like I say, there are people who just don't want to come to grips with it. But like I say, there are some people who can make that work. Please contact me. We can talk and you can teach me. I'm always open-minded about things, but the proof is in the pudding.